Today we'll be exploring The Children Under the House by Vintage 8. This channel actually has a lot of cool stuff, go check them out. Anyways, let's begin with the first video. It starts off with a repossessed storage locker that had documents, VHS tapes, and more. These items belonged to a therapist named Julia Liu, a pretty successful child therapist. Now because there's VHS tapes, it only makes sense to watch them, right? Heck no! Have you not watched a freaking horror movie? You're gonna get cursed! Oh, never mind. It's just tapes from Julia that's going to be addressed to John. The visuals in the tape are mostly of kids' drawings because the family didn't want their likeness to be used, and just Julia's voice. The drawings throughout the tapes were made by a girl named Jessica Daniels. Why is this all in VHS tapes? To make a book. Epic. Well, at least that was the original plan. But let's just brush that off and move on to the questionnaire! Specifically, the family are being questioned. Jessica, who prefers being called Jess, is a sweet and smart 7-year-old girl. Jess and her family moved to the Clark's house, which once belonged to an old couple who work in the burger shack. In their second week of living there, problems started to arise. One night, Jess ran to her mother Carol, screaming and claiming people are living under the house. It's just a kid having a nightmare, right? Yeah, no. This is set up to a horror movie. Everyone should run. Because of this, Jess can't sleep in her room anymore, so she had to sleep in her mother's room. Sadly, this didn't help because Jess started talking about the voices coming from under the floor. Jess didn't have this problem before, which was shocking to everyone, and Adam, the father, decided to take Jess to the basement to prove that there's no one down there. This backfired, however, and Jess did see something spooky. Whatever Jess saw caused her to become mute, and she hasn't spoken since that day. Physicians couldn't discover what was wrong with her physically, so whatever it is, something mentally is keeping Jess from speaking, or at least that's what they assumed. Because she can't speak, Jess has to communicate through drawings. Carol, Adam, Jess, and Dean. Carol, the mother who hates the fact that they moved. Adam, the father who's a workaholic. Jess, the little girl who hears voices. Dean, the brother who's a teenager and isn't happy about the move either. This is the family. The Daniels. Next video, and Julia was allowed to record her own voice during the session with Jess. Julia asked questions to Jess, and Jess answered through writing and art. To get to know each other better, they started off with simple and easy questions. Eventually, Julia asked Jess about her family. Jess drew her mother cooking, father working, brother speaking into a phone, and herself frowning while next to a teddy bear. Jess didn't answer why she was frowning in the drawing, and she didn't answer too much about the teddy bear either. But she did answer where she got it. He belongs to my friend. Who's this friend? Jess didn't answer and just looked towards the corner of the room. Okay, that sure isn't unsettling. Jess then drew this. Alright, imaginary friends or something else, I don't know what the frick is that. The session ends there because Jess stopped answering. Now we're moving on to the third video, which is the second session, and just like before, there was more questions being presented to Jess. When asked about what Jess wishes for, she answered by saying that she wants her family to be happy, to return to Houston, and for the people under the house to be free and leave. When Julia brought up the topic about her friends again, Jess just looked at the corner and didn't respond. That was until a sucker was offered to her and her friends. Yep, but a good way to persuade children is with candy, alright. But hey, it works because Jess said her friend is named Maya. Pleasure to meet ya, I guess. Okay, a kid shouldn't be drawing this. Turns out there are 10 or more children living under the house, and while questioning Jess, a picture frame in the corner of the room fell to the floor. That's ominous. In the end of the session, Julia wanted Adam, the father, to start asking questions to Jess as well. Oh, and Julia claimed that she had rats stealing her candy, and if I'm being honest, I don't think it's rats. Next video, session 3. In the beginning of the video, Julia believed Maya was a friend that was left behind in Houston, but that was just an assumption at the moment. Julia then continued to question Jess about the topics of her friends, but that only made Jess more stressed, and she kept her eyes on the corner. And during the topic about what Jess wants to be when she grew up, Julia also asked what Maya wanted to be when she was grown. Jess responded with this: Maya doesn't get to grow up. Why? Maya is dead. That is unsettling. Jess drew images of what happened to Maya. It seems as though she got into a car accident, which led to her getting split in half. The strange thing is, Maya was in the trunk. When asked, Maya doesn't remember why. She just knew bad people put her there. Now Maya and the other friends living in the basement, they're all sad. Only Jess can see them, and she does play with them, though a few of them are frightening to her. Why? Because they want to hurt her. Make her live under the house too. Luckily, Maya acts as Jess's protector, so that's good. End of session, and Julia requested for Jess to draw her other friends, and Jess agreed while apologizing about her friends taking the candy. I knew it wasn't rats! Next video, which is all about homework. The homework about Adam asking Jess questions. But before that, Carol seems very worried about everything. I mean, if she saw the Maya drawing, I'd be unsettled too. Additionally, things around the house seem to be missing or misplaced. How strange. Anyways, Adam is now going to ask questions to Jess. Julia did request this, so he's gonna follow through. To sum up the conversation, Jess and her friend Maya seem to like Julia. Jess isn't too excited about returning to school because she believes the kids will think she's weird, and when Adam tells Jess that Maya isn't real, this upsetted Maya. But not just Maya, Jess and her friends too. Okay. Learning more about Jess's relationship with Maya, it turns out Maya reads stories to Jess and they play together. They seem close. This unsettled her father and he wanted to return to work. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Adam fails to continue to do the questioning homework. On Monday, Carol decided to do the questioning. During the questioning, Carol wishes that she could take Jess and her brother back to Houston, but Jess said that can't happen. Why? Because they'll never let her leave. Any of them, in fact. Yep, horror movie plot. Too bad it's too late to leave now. Dang. Seeing things in the corner of their eyes, hearing things, objects moving around, Jess knows that Carol knows about them. About the children under the house. Chills. They're all a family. They can't leave. They all must stay in the house. How nice. Next video, and Carol's dropping off the drawings Jess made to Julia. They had a conversation, and Carol doesn't seem to be doing so well. Understandable, if I had a kid seeing ghosts, I'd probably turn to drinking too. Carol really doesn't want to believe everything that's going on, but it's difficult when she starts to see Jess's friends, her son too. And seeing her daughter play with her friends only adds to her stress. Even the bear isn't safe. When the teddy gets thrown out, it just returns. Carol feels like she's going mad, and just to ensure everything is in Jess's head, she dug up the whole yard. Even the police and guard dogs were brought in, but nothing was found. Except for a toy box and a menu to the Burger Shack. Alright. Carol will be contacting the Clarks, the previous owners, to return their items. After her rambling, Carol left Julia. Julia was understandably worried about Carol's mental state. Next video, and Adam and Carol need marriage counseling. Julia's more than happy to help them find a good counselor. So that's good, and now we're moving on to session 4. Jess seems more happy. Jess shows a letter from her father, and it says he promises he'll get better and improve for their family. This is why Jess is happy. That and because they're going on a vacation. That's nice. Now Jess shows Julia some drawings she made and gave more information on the friends. This next part can be a little much to most people, so if you want to skip it, I understand. First is Maya. We already know that she got stolen away from bad people and placed in a truck. Shelly, probably dying from an overdose. Wendy, not sure what exactly happened, but based on how they look, something really bad probably. Zach, blurry memories but recalls being stuffed in a fireplace. Brad, the eldest and forgotten in the dark, which led to his death. He believes his body is still where it was left behind. Mark, tried running but I assumed got shot. Kate, the scariest to Jess. Why? Because of all her limbs. The reason for having so many is because they represent the number of hands that hurt her. There's more, but they don't talk or remember anything. Gosh. Now remember, each of these drawings were made by a little girl. She's seeing these things. Let that sink in. When I look at these drawings, I can't even imagine what they actually look like in real life. What Jess is actually looking at. No, it's not that I can't imagine it, it's just that I don't want to. The drawings are unsettling enough, and actually trying to picture what they look like would be too much for me. Later we learn that Jess traded her voice for eyes, to see her friends. If her friends leave, that's when Jess is able to speak again. Jess then mentioned that Maya told her about John, the person Julia is sending the tapes to, but the strange thing is, Julia didn't mention to anyone in the family about John. So how does Jess know about John? Because Maya isn't an imaginary friend. Gosh. The next video, and Julia's investigating the library because if the situation is paranormal, that would explain why Jess knows about John through Maya. She learned that all the kids in Jess's drawings were actual kids who went missing in the past. Maya, for example, an actual girl who went missing just to be found dead in the trunk of a car. While taping all the information she gathered for John, Julia soon learned about the murder of Adam. Rest in peace, Daddy. Next video, and Adam had a funeral. What happened was a carjacking gone wrong. Carol's planning to move back to Houston with the kids, but because of what Jess said, they will never let me leave. Obviously, this is quite concerning. Julia wanted to help the family and the kids trapped under the house, but how? This was all too overwhelming for Julia. In the end, Julia decided to tell Carol about the article she discovered, but first she needs to do the last session with Jess. Jess is sad. Sad that her father was taken from her. She made a drawing of her father at his last moments. Shelly observing what happened and found the murderers familiar but couldn't recall who they were. Julia wanted to help, so she asked Jess to question her friends in hopes for any useful information. Food, talking, medicines, darkness, money, and a nice woman and man who gave toys and food. That was all that was recalled at the moment. Julia took note of everything. It's time for goodbyes, not because she'll be leaving for Houston, but because she'll remain in the house like the others. Julia promised to talk to Carol, and she did. She showed the articles and explained that what is happening to Jess is actually real. Sadly, this only motivated Carol into wanting to leave sooner. Carol didn't see the dangers of leaving with Jess, which only caused Jess to have a seizure only 2 miles away from the house. Jess now no longer communicates and stares at the wall. Poor girl. It's the next video, and Jess isn't doing too well. She had 4 seizures and her health is declining, but now she's communicating through drawings again. But her art depicts her similarly to her friends under the house. She'll be joining them soon. As for Jess's father, he moved on. But before he did, he wanted to take Sally with him, but something is keeping her from moving on. Something is keeping everyone from moving on. Everyone is lost, confused, and only remembering bits and pieces of their past. Jess fears she'll go through the same thing. Julia's determined to save Jess and thought the Clarks were a good start. So she called them and talked about the research she discovered. However, the Clarks didn't experience anything paranormal while living in the house. Not getting any useful information from them, Julia declined the lemonade they offered and continued on with her own research. Julia is trying so hard to put all the pieces together, trying to figure out everything going on, and by using the articles and art from Jess, she's starting to get the full picture. The kids were drugged, which explained their lack of memories, and rather than being murdered, they were being trafficked. If you arrange the drawings correctly, it shows the kids being in the burger shack, and within the art shows the Clarks, the culprits. It was a good thing she declined the lemonade. They must be responsible for what happened to those kids. They might not have been the ones actively harming the children, but because they allowed the burger shack to be used for trafficking, they are very much responsible. You monsters. Julia is now going to meet with the Daniels soon, but dropped off the tapes first, so if anything were to happen to any of them, John will know the Clarks are responsible. Next video. Julia rushes to the Daniels' house after hearing that Jess awoken, but once she arrived, she was greeted with Mr. Clark pointing a gun at her face. She was lured to the house because Jess wasn't actually awake. The Clarks were responsible for killing Adam in hopes to drive the Daniels away, but because Jess got sick, causing them to stay, and Julia sticking her nose in their business, they planned to kill them all and burn the house down. In a desperate attempt to save them, Julia needed to get the Clarks to confess. If they do, the ghosts will finally remember what happened to them, and maybe they'll be able to help. Amazingly, Julia got the Clarks to say the names of all the children, which sparked all their memories. And they were mad! The Clarks were ripped apart, and surprisingly nothing was left behind when they were dragged off. Not even blood. After the incident, the Clarks were reported missing, no one knowing what truly happened apart from the Daniels and Julia. Jess also drew this, so I'm assuming they're in heck. Ha! They deserved it. Burn! Anyways, the house's atmosphere is getting brighter, Jess's health is improving, and the Daniels plan to go back to Houston. Julia had one last session with Jess and learned that her friends were finally able to move on. She spoke! Jess spoke! She was right. When they finally moved on was when she got her voice back. Wow, happy ending. Wait, time skip. 10 years. The Daniels are doing well, and Jess seems to have forgotten about the children under the house. It's probably for the best. And in the end, Julia concludes that they shouldn't make this into a book. It's best to just let the situation rest. And that's The Children Under the House. Ghost children who suffered for so long finally finding peace and vengeance for the true monsters of the world. Satisfying. From the visuals to the sound design, I loved everything. And I don't know why I thought it was a smart idea to watch it at night in a dark room, but I did. And boy, children and horror are a combination that will forever unsettle me. Anyways, I hope you have a good day and go check out their videos. There's a lot of cool stuff. Anyways, don't die on me. Goodbye.